Education fundamentally is about training the conceptual faculty so as an adult we're ready to think and live and thrive. It's about really developing someone's ability to reason and use logic. Those are the fundamental things. Everything else happens pretty much automatically. We grow automatically, our heart beats automatically, we move. Of course, movement takes free will and choice, but the basic process is automatic. Now, yeah, to learn to move efficiently and properly, and to properly develop strength and agility and mobility, that takes training. But to be able to grasp what to do properly presupposes, depends on being able to think and reason independently and look at cause-effect relationships. Look, for example, at all the people who just follow authority or convention in what they do for exercise, health, nutrition. On some individual levels, partly that comes from a lack of time to look into things, being busy, things like that. But you think about what's going on fundamentally in the culture and in people's lives and what they know and what they can do. Fundamentally, it's a matter of their thinking and reasoning. It's the logic and reasoning in the culture, how people are presenting athletic and physical training, how they think about it. That derives ultimately from how people regard and use reason and logic. That's the fundamental there. When we really think about what's going on, when we find fundamentals, basic causes, we see that it's ultimately how people think, reason, use logic, connect to the world that matters. And that's the thing that we really need to train. That's the fundamental about education. I think movement practices are an important part of education, but not the essence. But they are an important part because of our human nature. We also have to have had enough sleep and be eating well and not be starving to death while we're in school. But those aren't part of education itself. Those are just broader conditions, or part of the human condition. Those are part of diet out of a whole human life. When we look at education out of a whole human life, we see that it's about the rational process. We got to maintain context about human life, but we have to focus in on what something really is. So education is about developing the conceptual faculty to prepare someone for adult life. So we have to think about what kind of things and subjects do that. I think some of the basics, as people have known for millennia, as seen in the practices of, for example, the great educator Maria Montessori, or in the great philosopher of education Leonard Peikoff. Some things we need to learn are literature, math, science, and history. Those are the four basics. Everything else is secondary. Again, remember, we got certain conditions. There should be certain good movement practices so that we stay awake, stay aware, so that our brain and nervous system is working properly. We're acting as the human beings that we are, the irrational animals. But we need to learn science so we know conceptually about cause-effect relationships in the world. There are a lot of them we need to know about, not just because we live in an advanced culture, but even if you were on an abandoned island all by yourself, you'd need to know a lot about cause-effect relationships to find and form some shelter, to keep yourself warm or cool, to have fire, to have food. That involves a great deal of thought. We need to study math because it's important in the sciences, all of them: physics, chemistry, biology, ecology, and more importantly because it helps us grasp what reasoning is about fundamentally making measurements of things, comparing quantities, being able to use the mind beyond the limits of perception. We can make quantitative comparisons of things on a grand scale through the whole solar system and universe. We can make quantitative comparisons of the everyday with things on the subatomic level, and that's possible only with mathematics. It helps us see the power of the mind and what we can do, the power of reason and logic. We need to study history, not just to memorize a bunch of dates and learn about some wars and memorize stuff and be bored. We need to learn history so we know what the human experience is, what people have done in the past. It's like a laboratory for ideas. What effects did this idea have? What effects did that idea have? How did we get where we are today? It's very important to know that so we can build on good ideas and improve, and we can avoid making mistakes from bad ideas that have been tried in the past and failed. It really tells us who we are as human beings. We need to know different people in different times and different places throughout history, not just our own little time and our own little place. Knowing our own little time and our own little place does not tell us what it is to be human, essentially and fundamentally. We need to abstract beyond that. It's very important so we can understand ourselves and other people and live a better life as an adult. We need to study literature because it's the only conceptual art. Art is very important in human life. Painting is more of a skill though. Yes, it's a skill to write, but it's a conceptual skill. Yes, painting does involve conceptual skills, but I mean the tool of literature is concepts themselves. It's the word, descriptions, conceptual evaluations and understandings of the real world. So literature teaches us what language is about. It teaches us grammar, how to put concepts together, how to make fine distinctions amongst things. It helps us to see subtle differences and subtle similarities, abstract, general similarities and differences. It's very important to do that, to define our words, to learn grammar. Grammar is very important in being logical. Without good grammar, we're always impaired a little bit in being logical. Yes, we can be very logical and do a lot, but it detracts and takes away from what we can do. We want to achieve our full power and make the most out of life, live an optimum life, and not just exist, but thrive. And so we should want to study grammar more to make us better people and better thinkers. So education is not fundamentally about memorizing things or following an authority. That causes a lot of trouble. People are unable to use their minds on their own in that case. They don't know how to think, they get confused, there's trouble living their lives and thriving, being the best person they can be. If we want the best for the people we teach, for our children, for those around us, for ourselves, for our culture, we should want a good, rational education that teaches us how to reason and be logical, so we know what we're thinking is true or very likely true, and we have the means to correct our thought if it's wrong. If we love life, if we value rational, good people, if we want to make the most of our lives on earth, we should want a good, rational education. I hope you agree, and I hope this gives you some ideas you can use in your own teaching and learning on your own. As children and adults, we should still do learning, kind of self-educate. This will give you some ideas about how to do it better, I hope. So let's all go out and make this a better world by training people, helping people to be more rational and logical. Thank you for watching.